Welcome to the first match of the evening. We're on Frost, spawning to the top right hand corner in green. Our Zerg plays here, playing for the United States, and 1F Pro, it's Wryza. And to the bottom left hand side in pink, playing Protoss for Team Red Bloods, and Germany, it's Lady Azylis. So, cross-spawn position, very favorable for Zerg in this case. That's actually what you want as a Zerg on Frost. It's the longest distance, I think, in existence on any map, rush-wise. So if you want to close the gap between your natural base and the opponent's natural base, I think this should be the longest route. Maybe there's, on Apotheosis the route is also very, very long. And then maybe, no, Galactic Process definitely not. Maybe on New Gettysburg if you have to walk the long way around, it's also pretty long. But yeah, Frost is pretty gigantic, so a long way to walk, and that's something you always like when you Zerg on this map. If the opponent spawns cross-spawn, you usually get that extra nick of time where you can just press out a few more drones here and there, and you don't have to be too afraid of instant attacks. But of course, Protoss with the warp gate mechanic might be able to kinda negate that advantage by building proxy pylons with proxy gateways or having a warp prism around that helps you to reinforce your army right at the front of your opponent's base. So sometimes it might not help as well, but in the early game it's of course something that favors Zerg a little bit on this map. So, in the meantime, we have the standard usual build for Wryza, opening up with the hatch first into gas into pool, nothing all too unusual here. Lady Azylis trying to get her base out as soon as possible, and then just walling off the entrance towards her natural base. Nothing all too uncommon here. Cybernetics core now in the making, while speed is being researched. And Wryza, if Wryza really wants to transition into a hard macro game, we should see her expanding in around half a minute. Actually, some Zergs really want to try to take a third base already, and it seems as if this probe is the one that's going to do it down here. So yeah, between 2.5 and 3 minutes is usually the timing when Zerg players want to take the third base if they really want to go heavy into the macro game. So far, actually, Wryza doesn't really know where her opponent is. Well, actually, she does know now where her opponent is, but she hasn't scouted her yet directly. She just knows it because she hasn't found her opponent at the other two possible locations. So, first two adepts are on the way, actually behind the wall, which is quite interesting, but it seems, yes, there's this little zealot over here, just closing the gap, so the adepts will have the possibility to move out and maybe put a little pressure on poor Wryza once they make their way across the map. So, hatchery still in the making, Roach Warren being thrown down, so it seems as if Wryza really wants to be secure against early adept pressure, or she just wants to produce a lot of roaches once this third base is saturated, or maybe just out for the drones, for the lava, sorry. So in the meantime, we have the two adepts just walking across the map, maybe even using the shade in just a few seconds here in order to make them come across the map a little bit quicker than usual. That's what a lot of players just do, shading forwards, because the shade actually moves quicker than the adepts themselves. So you will have the possibility to cross the map even quicker than usual. So in the meantime, it seems as if Wryza is doing the thing I was predicting, so she's just trying to drone up as quickly as possible. Unfortunately, leaving that base over here quite undefended, so now a few drones are going to die in the process of retreating, but we have some queens ready also. We have some queens just in position so that they might be able to at least fend off the adepts a little bit. Okay, roaches are out, so I think Lady Azylis will not leave these. Oh, actually she does. Whoa, I don't know if that was really a good move here. She just let all of the adept shade in. Now the shade is on cooldown and the roaches will just kill off both adepts without Lady Azylis doing any damage whatsoever. Wow, that was totally not worth it. So a little unfortunate move here. Should have cancelled the Adepts there, definitely, and just moved out once more after getting the initial scout, because there was not really much more she could do. Yeah, and that's of course a great position for Wryza here. I mean, she's almost on 60 drones already at the 5-minute mark, so all she actually needs to do now is just saturate the rest of her bases and then just pump roaches like crazy, and maybe even rolling over her opponent with Roach Ravager. We'll see what she's going to do. Azylis actually transitioning into the Resonating Glaives. Don't actually know if I like that move. I mean, she's seen that Wryza is actually going for early roaches, or has been going for a lot of roaches. So Adept's not actually the weapon of choice against a lot of roaches there, and she must assume that her opponent is actually going into roaches. This seems a little bit like a timing push. She's just playing a little bit blindly here, not really reacting to the information she got out of Wryza there. I mean, we'll see. She might as well just transition into Stalkers, but then of course the Resonating Glaives would be a little bit wasteful here. The Resonating Glaives of course just make the overall DPS, the damage output of Adepts, a lot better. Still, Adepts not the best units against a lot of Roaches and Ravagers. And Roaches are actually the only units that Wryza is keep producing here. She's already at 90 supply, could actually be higher if it wasn't for the supply block here. Lady Azylis just gathering a lot of resources here. I mean, she can just spend it out in just a few seconds once these warp gates start producing things. Wryza actually gets a good scout with that Overlord over here, seeing everything, all of the gateways right here, and the answer is immediately pumping out a few more roaches and also getting the roach upgrades, plus the muscular augments for the Hydra. So it's going to be a mostly Roach Hydra based composition that should actually just easily crush any kind of gateway pressure that's headed her way, if of course she has enough units at a certain point in time. So Roach is just waddling across the creep, trying to intercept any units that are now at the watchtower. Okay, Lady Azylis moves in. Ravagers are just morphing there, but like I said, it's so many roaches over here. I mean, Azylis could just try to shade into somewhere, or just at least fake a shade and then maybe retreat. But yeah, still no damage dealt by her. The only thing she can do right now, and that's the smartest move in that situation, is to totally retreat, because there's not much she can do right here. Too many roaches there that would just eat up all of the Adepts without them dealing much damage. But of course, she's still in a very desperate position here. I mean, she's taken her third base, which is quite good for her. But the biggest problem is, of course, right now that she hadn't been able to deal any damage to the economy of her opponent. So like I said, the only thing that Wryza actually needs to do right now is just trading off, saturating her fourth base, and then just pumping units like crazy, because Azylis will just never be capable of holding off that first push. And it already seems, ladies and gentlemen, as if this might already be game. I mean, there's only one photon overcharge available for one pylon here, nothing else to defend that base. The third base is definitely going to die, and Wryza knows that there's no fourth base in the making. Yeah, she just moves in. Should actually, if she is actually even able to kill the robotics facilities before the first Immortals pop out, this will be just, I mean, this will be it, ladies and gentlemen. She gets the first Robo, maybe the Immortal might pop out, but even if it does, it's just one lonely Immortal out there. Actually, okay, killing the pylon over here, so the Robo cannot even finish the one Immortal. Last Robo dies, and with it, actually, the last hope of coming back into that game. It's 135 supply to 55, almost tripling the supply of Lady Azylis here. Third base is going to die for sure as well, and like I said before, the only thing that Wryza really needs to do from now on is just pumping roaches and ravagers like crazy, sending them across the map, reinforcing all of her units, and slowly but surely Lady Azylis will just starve out of minerals and resources, because she will just never be able to retake a third base anytime soon, while Wryza is already on 4 bases. And now transitioning into Hive even, which will probably not even be necessary. I think it's only a matter of time. And Wryza now finally says to move in. A few force fields might help out, but they're not the best force fields either. So Wryza just retreats a little bit, waits for a few more roaches. I think she herself is not quite certain how far ahead she actually is. Doesn't want to lose it for a stupid move. So that's it, GG, and Wryza takes the first game. Frozen Temple is the second map of choice for this best of 5, spawning to the bottom right hand corner in green, playing Zerg. It's Wryza. And to the top left in pink, playing Protoss, we have Lady Azylis. Let's see what she's going to try this time around. May it be the same build or not. It's obviously going to be a Nexus first, it seems. Maybe starting with a gateway if she just feels a little bit suspicious. Yeah, she doesn't really want to fall for an early cheese out of Wryza. She will not be able to scout anytime soon by doing what she does right now, or even getting the gas up as well. So just wants to use the possibility not to wall off on top of the ramp, but just wants to close off this gap as soon as possible. It's actually pretty easily done on Frozen Temple, because the entrance towards your natural base is just pretty small compared to other openings. So, is this a proxy? It seems as if it really is. The last time around we saw Lady Azylis playing on this map, she was usually using this position over here to plant down Pylon and Stargate and then just fly in either with an Oracle, but most of the time it was actually some sort of Void Ray cheese. This time around it seems Lady Azylis just wants to build a proxy building as well, but somewhere else. Maybe being afraid of getting sniffed out by players, because that's of course the problem when you play in a league and you have to play a lot of games every week that also get broadcast 100%. Yeah, players will just be able to see your strategies and tactics and might be able to adjust to them. So I think that's actually one of the good things of the FSL, that people also have to adjust their playstyles and always have to think of something new and something shiny to surprise their opponents. So in the meantime, we have the same usual standard build for Wryza. I mean, actually we have to be fair. If you don't cheese as a Zerg player early on, the ways of opening are very limited for Zerg in the early game. The best thing you can do anyways, even if you actually plan to cheese, is the hatch first. I mean, if you want to go for a really early Ling Roach bust, then of course you would open up with a spawning pool and then going into a hatch, maybe even doing it out of one base, but then of course it gets pretty scoutable, or pretty easily scouted, that's what I actually wanted to say. So there's the proxy pylon, and we already have a robo back here. So this is actually going to be interesting. I don't really know yet what Lady Azylis is up to. I think this robo shall probably be some sort of warp prism play. Maybe this is just for Dark Shrine, for Twilight Council and Dark Shrine follow-up, but just out of sight of Wryza's overlords, so we'll see what's going to happen there. But yeah, there's of course the warp prism already. Maybe it's just going to be a warp gate for quicker warp-ins, but that seems a little bit unlikely. No, there it is. Okay, there's actually a Twilight Council inside the main base. So this is quite odd. I don't really know what this proxy pylon is for right now. Okay, good scouting there by Lady Azylis here, just having the Stalker checking the edges of her own base, thus denying the Overlord scout. That of course should freak out Wryza a little bit. I mean, if your opponent is really hard trying to keep your overlords and scouting away, there must be something up. But yeah, it seems as if Wryza just barely not seeing the proxy pylon over here with the overlords. I mean, just even sending 2 overlords towards that location and finally just finding the proxy pylon over here, even with speed overlords, which is actually pretty nice there for her. So now it's finally been sniffed out, whatever Lady Azylis was actually planning to do over there. So a few Zerglings actually with speed crossing the map. They won't really be able to deal that much damage, but she has a Banelingness, doesn't she? Yes. So it seems as if she just wants to break through with Banelings over here. Actually, that might work out quite well, and with the speed overlords, Wryza could actually just try to transition into drop lords as well, and then maybe just crush inside the main base. But it seems as if she just wants to break through the main entrance by force. So let's see how this is going to work out. I mean, there's nothing, really, I mean, absolutely nothing at home. There's one pylon over to the left-hand side. This pylon is going to die. So it seems as if Lady Azylis has somehow sniffed out what's going to happen there. Don't really know how she did it, but she just barely walls off the rest of the wall. And fortunately, it's not enough. The buildings just didn't have enough hit points in order to keep the Baneling explosion in check. So unfortunately, now there's a big gap in the wall. Lady Azylis just closing it off as soon as she can, but a lot of Lings have made it inside the main base, now tearing apart a lot of these workers. But fortunately for her, she still has enough energy left for another photon overcharge, so these Lings will just get stopped by the photon overcharge alone. More Lings in the meantime just breaking through the already damaged building over here. So now the Immortals have to fight against the Zerglings. Nice use there of the Immortal Shield, but it seems as if the important Cybernetics core will get torn down. We still have a wide open gap with more Lings reinforcing out of 3 hatcheries. So unless Lady Azylis really finally manages to re-wall off that section over here, I think this again just should be a quick game out of Wryza. Yeah, still don't really know what that proxy pylon over there was for. Maybe, like I said, for a few warp-ins later on. Seems as if she just wanted to do some immortal drops early on, but unfortunately her wall was not sufficient enough to hold off Wyrza's Baneling bust. There goes the second base. Wryza now on 3 bases, although they are not fully saturated. It doesn't even matter, even if Lady Azylis should finally end up somehow holding the rest of the aggression, she would be down to 1 base. GG's out, and Wryza takes the second game for a 2-0 lead. King Sejong Station is our designated third map for this best of 5. Spawning to the top left-hand corner in green, playing Zerg, it's Wryza. And spawning to the bottom right-hand corner in pink, playing Protoss, it's Lady Azylis. This time around, not trying to wall off right at the bottom of the ramp to secure an early natural base, but going for the wall off on top of the ramp instead. Planting down the gateway and then sending out the drone to scout, or actually the probe to scout, not the drone. The worker. Just say worker. Worker makes it so much easier than everything else. Okay, Wryza in the meantime just droning up, getting the hatch first, getting the gas, getting the pool. So nothing all too uncommon for her. We've seen this a million times already. Overlords on their way, probably towards that little tower position here, where the Overlord just stands on the high ground and will not be seen by any units down here until the Mothership Core comes out and grants vision of that high ground. But until that time, an Overlord positioned on that tower is always a nice way of scouting the entrance to your opponent's base and see what's going on there. So, probe goes round, sees the build order, knows what's going to happen, maybe even just, sending the probe towards the third base, and just trying to delay it a little more, maybe even just seeing when it's going to be planted down. Usually just want to have this probe either on patrol command, so it will just move around more and more. So even if your opponent tries to nibble it away to plant down the base, it will not move away on its own, so you will just gain some time. Or of course the other way that a lot of people do is just sending the probe to somewhere safe where the first early Lings will not be able to chew it away, and then just return later on in order to gather some information whether a third base has been taken or not. But seems as if Lady Azylis again just wants to use it for some sort of proxy shenanigans. We don't know yet what it's going to be this time around. But we have a Twilight Council and a few Adepts, so I think it's reasonable to say that she probably wants to go into Resonating Glaive Adepts once more, and then just maybe overwhelm her opponent. Actually, the only thing she can do right now is just cross her fingers and hope that Wryza is not trying to go into Roaches blindly once more, because that would just make a big cross through all of her plans. Yeah, and then we just seen it that Wryza just sent ahead these 2 Lings in order to check whether a pesky probe was just blocking that hatchery position over here. It wasn't, so they can just retreat and the drone can plant down the hatchery. So, a nice little move there by Wryza, just using the first initial Zerglings to check these Onaga towers, also getting a good feeling that Azylis is actually up to something with a proxy pylon out on that map that she now definitely has to see, but is not attacking, which is quite interesting there. So she actually sees it and maybe does not realize it, which is a big problem that a lot of players keep having. It's just a typical thing you see, that actually the information is out there for the player to see, but the player just doesn't realize it because the brain is just occupied with so many other things. It's always easier said than done. So Wryza just moving in with her speedlings, trying to get a good scout off. Actually doesn't really see that much, can unfortunately not get inside the main base, so good blocking there by Lady Azylis. Standard, but still good blocking. Sometimes these little mistakes happen where there is no unit here, or the unit is not on hold position, and then the links might stream in as well, which of course can sometimes be really catastrophic. Wow, even using the photon overcharge to deny the Overlord scouting. Well, in Wryza's case, I'd be freaking out now. I mean, there must be something hidden. We've seen that Azylis has planted down a pylon in the middle of the map. She desperately tries to deny my scouting. I mean, what can I guess from that? So I would just immediately start producing units like crazy. And this time we have a little bit of a late Roach Warren. Normally, if you don't really know what's going up, you want to have it around, or plant it down around the 4-minute mark, so that it finishes around the 5-minute mark, and you can immediately start producing roaches. But this time around it's a little bit late, will still probably not make a big difference. So in the meantime, Azylis prepares to take a third base down here. She now has a lot of warp gates out there, and the Overlord has again spotted everything. So as we can see, Wryza really likes the Speed Overlord upgrade in order to get better scouting information out. It's a big investment that early on, but for her it has really paid off thus far. And again, we have a lot of adepts just moving out on the map. Actually not that many. I would have really expected a lot more at that point in time. And it seems as if Wryza actually even sees them moving out. If she's paying attention, she should know what's coming. So she should just gather all of her roaches at the third base location. Seems again as if she just hasn't realized. So minimap awareness, a little bit problematic here for Wryza. Like I said before, she just gets all the information, but she doesn't really seem to make anything out of it, which is quite interesting there. I mean, she could have already intercepted a lot of these units that are just crossing the map, just passing her units very, very closely. I mean, now she finally, but it's just auto-attacking. The roaches are just auto-attacking. So again, Wryza not realizing what's going on the minimap here. A bit unfortunate for her, because she could have already reacted way earlier and way sooner. So this time around, maybe she will take some damage. Okay, this time around, Azylis does not commit, does not really shade in, sees all of the roaches there. But of course, it's still the same problematic situation. I mean, she's invested so many resources into this little force. She needs to deal damage, and maybe she'll find it over here. Has to be careful now not to attack the spine crawler actually, but to take down as many drones as possible, because that's what this hit squad is for. This hit squad is made to destroy mineral lines, and if it doesn't, the investment is just so vast and the outcome of it is just so small. Actually nothing, not one worker killed, not one worker lost for Wryza. That is just like the best outcome a Zerg could even wish for. Even producing 11 more workers, it seems as if Wryza mostly was even thinking that she might lose a few workers and was just preparing for reproducing it. But yeah, now she's just on 68 workers to 49. The only good thing for Lady Azylis right now is that she has a lot of had a lot of resources banked up, has already secured her third base, and is now even reinforcing it with structures. So she will be able to produce a lot of units in quite some time. But we actually have the same situation as in the first game. The only thing that Wryza needs to do from now on is just keep producing units, because she already has the economy she wanted to have. And we can see what she's using it for. I mean, look at that production tab. It almost tells you all of the story, where Wryza just has all the money in the world to do whatever she wants, while Lady Azylis just keeps on struggling to get the resources up and then finally get the production going. I mean, give Lady Azylis like 2 minutes more and her production will be tremendously exciting for her. But in this case around, it's just problematic for her to even hold these buildings over here. The only thing she really has here are the sentries and a few stalkers. Sentries not the greatest of damage dealers. Of course, with good force fields, they might help out a little bit defending this force over here. But still, I mean, Wryza can just afford to trade this units, no problem here. This time around, she actually gets out 2 Immortals. They will help out tremendously fending off that push. So I think Wryza's time to just walk back and retreat would have actually come like 20 seconds ago. If you have a heavy roach force and you're actually morphing right in front of your opponent's units is not such a good idea. Was actually hoping that Lady Azylis wouldn't track her down and follow her, but she did. So Wryza for now has to completely retreat, sending out a little Ling run-by force here, trying to take down the debris over here, and she finally manages to do so, and the army is totally out of position, so this strike might hit her very hard. There's at least 1 mothership core over here, but of course Wryza is just splitting up everything. Yeah, and of course there was no unit anymore inside that gap. You don't really want to have it there anymore, and now a lot of drones are dying. A lot of probes, sorry, a lot of workers are dying over here. 13 have already gone down. In the meantime, while Lady Azylis is occupied trying to defend at home, Wryza just moves in, tries to take out the main force, and with the help of the Ravagers, especially with no micro involved at all, but Lady just barely sees the Biles dropping down, moves back. Very nice move here by her, which just might save her for now, but just barely moving out of the shower of Ravager Biles there, losing 1 Immortal for now, losing the another Immortal as well. Are there more units being rallied across the map? No, but 29 workers have been killed as well. 30 more Zerglings in production. Maybe Wryza, maybe Azylis might be able to just barely hold with the help of the shield and the Immortals here, but remember that Immortals don't deal extra damage to Ravagers because Ravagers do not have the armored attack, unlike Roaches there, so they still deal a lot of damage in combination with the Biles especially though. And, I mean, this looks very grim for Lady Azylis. She now even loses more workers here, cannot mine at her 3rd base at all. Might finally be able to clean up that Ravager force, but Wryza has already collected or recollected a lot of links here. Could just again run in from the backside and destroy more workers and maybe even structures inside the main base, while the main army is again, of course, out of position because Lady Azylis needed to protect her 3rd base. Unfortunately, the robotic facilities are also out of power. More probes are going to die. It's 150 to 58 supply, and unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, and fans of Azylis, this is going to be game. Like I said, I mean, even if Lady Azylis manages to finally clear off that push once more, her economy is just in shambles. 8 probes to 63, a Zerg player on 4 bases, and yes, Lady Azylis has the base structure, but it's worth nothing if you can't really saturate your bases, and it would just take forever in order to even re-establish a good saturation at these 3 bases. And once she's done so, Wryza will just have maxed out and walk over her army, no problem whatsoever. So the next remaining force just moves in, will even kill a few more structures over there. Lady Azylis has just tried to move out, might be just going out for a desperate counterattack, maybe hoping for a base race or just luring back her opponent. I might actually even be able to kill off a few units here and there that are not with the rest of the army. But yeah, even a move command there with the Hydralisks, but it's actually this is kind of an okay engagement considering what Lady Azylis has, but it's still going to be too much. GG, well played, and Wryza takes the victory with a convincing 3-0.